Wait. A stern voice cut through the morning air like a blade. Nicole stopped walking. Her shoulders tightened. In a place like this, a voice calling you back was never good news. She turned slowly. Grace, the female warden who had supervised her block for 2 years, was walking toward her, slightly out of breath, something small pinched between 2 fingers. "This is for you," Grace said. "Mark wanted you to have it." The female warden handed her a small envelope as she spoke. Nicole furrowed her brows as she instinctively stretched her hand to receive the envelope. Grace waved at her before turning around in the direction she had appeared from. Nicole stood there, the envelope light as air in her palm, no name on the front, no return address, just a cream-colored rectangle with tape already peeling at the edges. The van to the bus depot was idling at the gate, exhaust coughing into the cold morning air. She tucked the envelope in her back pocket, grabbed her paper bag of belongings, and climbed in. She was 20 years old. She had $32, a change of clothes, and whatever was in that envelope. That was everything. Or so she thought. The bus dropped her in Calverton, a town so small it didn't show up on the map she grabbed at the station. 2 streets, a gas station, a diner, a church with a cracked bell tower, and a bakery window with a handwritten card, "Fresh donuts, $1." She hadn't eaten since the night before. She pushed through the glass door. The bell chimed. The smell of warm dough and cinnamon hit her, and her eyes stung, though she would have told you it was just the heat from the fryer. "Just one," she told the woman behind the counter. She reached into her jacket for the crumpled dollar she'd been keeping there. Her fingers closed on the envelope instead. She pulled the dollar out, and the envelope came with it, tumbling out of her hand and landing face down on the floor. She picked it up. The tape had fully peeled. The flap was open. She paid for the donut, sat at the small table by the window, and finally read the letter. Inside was a single sheet torn from a yellow legal pad. The handwriting was shaky, like someone who'd taken great care with every word despite trembling hands. "Nicole, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I'm sorry I could not be there when he walked out those gates. I thought about it every day. I am leaving you the only thing I have left to give. The farmland at Route 9, Harrow County, 40 acres and the house on it. The deed is in your name. You only need to pay the registration fee. I've already arranged everything. Do not let them take it from you. Mark Morrison." She read it 3 times. Then she folded it carefully, looked out the window at the empty street, and sat very still. A dead man just left a 20-year-old girl a piece of land from his grave. But here's what nobody is asking yet. Why that land? Why her? And why did he wait until he was gone to say it? Comment "Mark" if you need answers, because it only gets deeper. Mark Morrison had been 71 years old when his heart gave out quietly in his sleep. Nicole had learned about it from the prison chaplain 8 months before her release. A soft knock on her cell door, a look on the chaplain's face that told her everything before he opened his mouth. She had cried for 3 days and told no one why. To understand what Mark meant to Nicole, you have to understand what Nicole was before him. She was 17 when they brought her in. Shoplifting charges stacked on top of a record she'd been building since she was 14. Survival crimes, the kind hungry, unwatched kids commit when no one is paying attention. No mother to speak of, a father who existed more as an absence than a presence. She'd been sleeping on a friend's couch for months when she got caught the last time, and the judge decided a structured environment was warranted. 2 years. Juvenile extension to adult facility on her 18th birthday. But here's the part of the story that Nicole never talked about, the part that woke her up at 2 in the morning more nights than she could count. When the police came for her, she hadn't been alone. She'd had a 7-year-old brother named Daniel. Small for his age, quiet, the kind of child who collected things, bottle caps, smooth stones, anything that fit in a pocket. He'd been sitting on the steps of the building when the handcuffs went on. She'd look back at him over her shoulder, and the last thing she saw was him standing up slowly, his little face trying very hard to understand what was happening. She didn't know where Daniel went after that. Social services, foster care, somewhere in the system that had been swallowing children like him for generations. She'd written letters. She'd asked questions. Nobody told her anything. Nobody owed her anything, they made clear. She had carried that not knowing like a stone inside her chest every single day she was inside. When she walked out knowing she might never find him. She did not let herself fall apart over it. She couldn't afford to. But it was there, always there, the quiet ache of a sister who had left a little boy standing on a step and hadn't been able to go back. Before we go further into this mystery, take 1 second to like the video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories like this, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Because tomorrow at this exact same time, I'll be dropping another story that's even more shocking than this one, and you do not want to miss it. Now let's continue. The county registrar's office in Harrow County smelled like old paper and air freshener. The clerk barely looked at her when she came in. She laid Mark's letter on the counter, followed by the deed documents she'd found folded inside the envelope, thin, formal, typed on onion skin paper. The clerk looked them over, looked at her, looked back at the documents. "The registration fee is $1, he said. She slid the dollar across the counter. He stamped the documents without another word. She walked out of that office the legal owner of 40 acres of land and a farmhouse she had never seen. The farmhouse was worse than she'd imagined, and better than nothing. 2-story, once white, now the color of old teeth. Half the porch rotted through. 2 upstairs windows covered in plywood. The well pump out back produced rust-colored water after 10 minutes of fighting. The interior smelled like something had lived and died inside the walls. But the structure was sound. The roof held. There was a fireplace. There were 4 walls. Nicole stood in the middle of what had once been a living room, looked at the collapsed ceiling in the corner, and said out loud to no one, "Okay, Mark, okay." She spent the first week cleaning and repairing. She'd picked up basic carpentry from a woman on her block. She prioritized ruthlessly: roof, windows, water, heat, and worked from sunup to dark. Then she planted a vegetable patch on the south side of the house. Tomatoes, beans, lettuce. She watered it every morning. By the second week, nothing had sprouted. By the 4th week, the soil looked exactly as it had when she turned it over. Dark, dense, oily to the touch. She replanted. Same result. Tried a different patch. Same result. And the soil, it had a strange sheen some mornings, like something was weeping up from below. She didn't know what it meant yet. She was wrong to think it was nothing. Something is wrong with this land. Comment what you think is buried under it. I want to see your guesses before the reveal. The first offer came 6 weeks after she moved in. A black sedan, deeply out of place on Route 9, pulled up while she was on the porch with coffee. A man in a suit got out, polished, friendly in the engineered way. He introduced himself as a lawyer representing a company called Creston Resources. He offered her $40,000 for the land. Nicole looked at him over the rim of her cup. She thought about Mark's handwriting. "Do not let them take it from you." "It's not for sale," she said. The lawyer smiled like she'd said something charming. He left his card. He drove away. Nicole stood on the porch a long time after that, watching the dust settle. $40,000 for land that grew nothing. Land that no one in this town wanted anywhere near them. Why? Calverton was not a town that welcomed strangers, but it watched them with great interest. Nicole learned quickly, if you wanted to know something in this county, you went to Earl Briggs. Earl was 83. He lived in a house full of newspaper stacks and cats and had the reputation of being simultaneously the most difficult and most knowledgeable person in 50 miles. Born in Harrow County. Never left. Nicole brought him a tin of cookies and sat across from him at his kitchen table. She asked him about the land. His expression shifted. Not quite fear, not quite grief, something older than both. "Morrison's land," he said. "Not a question." "Mine now," she said. He looked at her. Then he began to talk. The Carver family had owned that land before Morrison. 3 generations of good farming people. Every crop they planted died in the ground. Animals grazed there and got sick within a season. 2 of the Carver boys ran cattle on the South 40, lost every head inside a year. People called it cursed land. By the time old Raymond Carver died, none of his children wanted it. They sold it to Morrison for almost nothing just to be rid of it. Why did Morrison want it? Nicole asked. Earl picked up his coffee cup, set it down, looked out the window. That's the question, isn't it? He didn't answer it that day, but he poured her more coffee. She stayed another hour, and she understood something important. Earl Briggs knew more than he was telling her, and he was deciding whether she was worth the truth. A man who buries the truth always watches the door. Whatever Earl knew, powerful people had spent decades making sure it stayed quiet. Like and subscribe if you already sense this is bigger than a piece of farmland. The second offer came in month 3. A different lawyer. A woman. Sharp. Efficient. Same company. Creston Resources. $120,000. Nicole said no. Before the woman got back in her car, she said, in a tone that walked right to the edge of a threat, "Miss Nicole, I'd encourage you to think carefully. Land like this doesn't hold value the way people expect." Nicole thought about $1 sliding across a registrar's desk. "Thank you for your time," she said. That night she sat at the farmhouse table with a notepad and wrote down everything she knew, every question without an answer. She stared at the list, then added one line at the bottom. What does Creston Resources want with land that grows in nothing? Earl opened up more on her third visit. A geological survey team had come through Harrow County when Earl was in his 20s. When they reached the Carver property, they stayed 4 days instead of the usual 1. When they left, the head surveyor had a closed-door meeting with the county assessor that ran 3 hours. After that, the land's official assessed value dropped quietly and permanently. Someone knew, Earl said. Someone knew what was under that ground a long time ago, and someone made sure it stayed buried. Nicole leaned forward. "What's under the ground, Earl?" He looked out the window. "Coal," he said quietly. "Deep veins of it, running under most of that South 40 and further out. The kind of deposit worth enough that powerful people have kept secrets about it for 60 years. The room went very still. Coal. That's why the crops died. That's why the animals got sick. The deposits were leaching through the water table and poisoning everything above ground. It was never cursed. It was stolen. Share this video if that just hit different. Nicole thought about the oily soil. She thought about Creston Resources. She thought about Mark. Had he known? She drove back to the prison on a Thursday. Grace received her with the look of someone who'd been half expecting this visit. "He knew," Nicole said. Grace unlocked her bottom desk drawer and pulled out a second envelope, thicker than the first, and slid it across the desk. "He said to give you this after you'd had time to settle in. He said you'd come back asking questions when you were ready." Nicole opened it at the desk. Inside was an original geological survey report dated 47 years ago. The land listed, the Carver property, Route 9, Harrow County. The assessment, significant coal deposit, high commercial value, further development warranted. Every page stamped, confidential, suppressed. Beneath the survey was a handwritten note from Mark. "Nicole, I worked for the county assessor's office when I was 30 years old. I was the man who buried that report. I was paid to do it by a company called Creston Resources. I did it because I needed money and told myself it didn't matter. I have spent 40 years knowing it mattered. I bought the land because I owed it something. I could not give it back to the Carvers. They are gone. But I could give it to someone who had nothing and deserved something. Someone who would not flinch. I chose you, Nicole, because in 2 years of sitting across from you, I never once saw you flinch. The survey is yours. The land is yours. The truth is yours. Be strong. Be wise. God is with you. Mark." Mark spent 40 years carrying one mistake, and when he finally found his answer, it wasn't a lawyer or a politician. It was a 20-year-old girl with $32 and a paper bag. Then came the hidden connection that cracked the story wide open. It was Patrice, the neighbor down the road who quietly left jars of preserved vegetables on Nicole's porch, who mentioned it first. Almost by accident. Your grandmother's maiden name wasn't Carver by any chance, was it? Nicole looked at her. I don't know my grandmother's name. Patrice set down her jar slowly. Come inside. What came out over the next hour was a thread Nicole had never known existed. Patrice had lived in Calverton her whole life. She remembered a woman, Eleanor Carver, later Eleanor Morrison, who had left the county decades ago after marrying a man her family didn't approve of. Eleanor was Raymond Carver's youngest daughter, the only one who'd left before the land was sold. She was Mark Morrison's sister-in-law, and she was Nicole's maternal grandmother. Nicole sat at Patricia's kitchen table and felt the whole story rearrange itself around her. Mark hadn't chosen her randomly. He had gone looking for Eleanor Carver's granddaughter, looking for the rightful heir to the land. She filed the geological survey with the county clerk the same morning she left Patrice's house. Earl connected her with a retired land rights attorney named Thomas Ware. Thomas followed the corporate trail from Harrow Mineral Corp. To Creston Resources. Nicole walked into the Calverton newspaper office with a folder of documents and told the whole story, start to finish. The paper was small. The story was not. Regional papers picked it up, then national ones. Thomas Ware filed in county court. Creston Resources sent another offer, $250,000. Thomas recognized it immediately as a bluff. The fourth offer came from a senior partner at a major city firm, $800,000. Thomas laughed out loud when he read it. The case settled 11 months after Nicole filed the survey. Creston Resources agreed to a settlement reflecting the actual value of the coal deposit, the real number, the number that had been hidden for decades. A portion went to the Carver families Nicole and Earl had tracked down across 4 states. A portion went to the church where Mark had sat quietly for 12 years. And the farmhouse on Route 9? Nicole kept it. She fixed the porch, replaced the windows, brought in clean earth, built raised beds, and the following spring had tomatoes so red and heavy they drooped off the vine. She was 21 years old. She had not flinched. 6 weeks after the settlement closed, Nicole was sitting on the porch at dusk, the good kind of tired. A car she didn't recognize turned off Route 9 and rolled slowly down the dirt road. She watched it without moving. The engine cut. The driver's door opened. A young boy stepped out, maybe 13, small for his age. He stood there with his hands in his pockets, and in his left hand were 3 smooth stones, the kind a child collects, the kind her little brother used to carry. Nicole stood up slowly. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The boy looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "Nicole, I've been looking for you for a really long time." The jar Patrice had left that morning slipped from Nicole's hand and shattered on the porch. She didn't hear it. She was already running. And that is where we'll leave this story for tonight. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you think, tell me in the comments what moment hit you the hardest. I read every single one. And if you enjoy powerful stories like this one, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. Because trust me, the next one is even more unbelievable. I'll see you in the next video.